Story 1. Having my 4-day-old baby removed from a respirator and then holding him until his heart stopped beating. Story 2. Watching someone I love slowly become a stranger while I could do nothing about it. That kind of silence feels different. Story 3. Being bullied, criticized, and excluded during the years when I was forming my self-image and self-worth affected me deeply. I spent many years feeling that I was less than because adults and peers communicated that to me. It still impacts my ability to feel that I belong, although I am now able to love myself. Story 4. My wife was lied to and manipulated into hating me. It did not last, and it is fine now, but that was rough. Story 5. Seeing my mom suffering from Parkinson's disease for 15 years before passing away, and my dad with terminal prostate cancer from 2016 until he died in 2019. Story 6. Watching my son addicted to fentanyl for 10 years and all the challenges that come with it is more painful than the death of a parent, a best friend becoming paralyzed, my brother's suicide, divorce, and more. I would not wish this on anyone. Story 7. My only son, my reason to live, was diagnosed with brain cancer at 5 years old and died 1 year later after 4 emergency brain surgeries, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. Watching him slowly die and everything that implies was just too hard. Story 8. Watching my mother slowly die of cancer as my father desperately tried everything in his power to keep her alive. Story 9. My girlfriend cheated and then accused me of getting her pregnant, even though the chances of that are almost zero. Seriously, my doctor told me I have maybe an 8% chance of ever having kids. Most friends took her side, even after finding out about my fertility and that the baby was not mine. Story 10. This is a long list, but what I still cannot accept is how I have to sacrifice many of my dreams, especially to continue my studies in college so that my family can survive and my siblings can continue their education. My little brother is in early high school, and my little sister is still in 3rd grade. Story 11. I am a victim of domestic violence by my son's father after we broke up. 1 set of death charges has been sentenced, and this past week I filed a 2nd round of charges. His plea deal from the first charges will be revoked. He is running from arrest and will be combative once they find him. This is definitely not what I wanted. My son will most likely never know his dad. I am scared of losing him to suicide since this happens when his mental health is poor. Story 12. Watching my mom die in front of me when I was 18. She was on life support, and they told me she couldn't hear me. But when they pulled the plug and I was screaming, "Love you," and crying uncontrollably, tears started rolling down her face. Story 13. My wife's death. I had to hold her hand in the hospital and watch her heart rate go to 0 because you are not officially dead until that happens. Can take much longer than you think. Story 14. Watching my once hardworking family man, who never complained about anything, my grandfather slowly declined due to dementia. By the end, he fell and was hospitalized for 2 weeks, then placed in a care home where we lost him 2 weeks later. He was living 45 years ago in his mind, not recognizing anyone in the family, and talking about his days in the military as if we were his fellow airmen. One night, he opened his eyes, looked right at me, and saluted, so I saluted back while my uncle watched in silence. He thought my daughter was me at her age and said, "I remember her, the sweetest little girl in the world." The night before he passed, I had a few minutes alone with him and told him he was strong and stubborn, but it was okay to go now. I will miss him forever, but it was all right to rest and no longer have to fight. He passed, and I received the phone call at 3:56 the next morning. I will miss him until my own last breath. Story 15. I lost both my parents in less than a few years from each other. Both were sick and dealing with serious emotional distress from other issues. My father was the first to pass away, completely unexpectedly. I saw him the day before he died and knew he was very sick but assumed it was a common illness like the flu. He was acting strangely, and I did not have my child with me because she was with her sitter while my husband and I went out for dinner. We ran into my father at the store where he was trying to get medicine. He told us to watch after our child, which was a strange thing to say. It was not a passing joke. He meant it as in take care of her for me, which confused me deeply. He also told me to give my child a hug when she got home. I did not have the time that night to visit my father because it was late and, due to his illness, I wanted to keep my child safe. I said, "We'll see Grandpa next week. How about that?" The very next day, I had to explain to my child why we were not going to see Grandpa next week. That was also the first time I ever lied to my child directly. Story 16. Coming to the realization in therapy that what I experienced in my teenage years was a form of sex trafficking. Those were all feelings I kept in a box for over a decade. And when that box was opened and it all really hit me, it was a devastating blow. I am still dealing with it. Story 17. Having to put down my emotional support animal was heartbreaking. He got sick so fast. I thought he would be here much longer, even though he had some health issues. He developed a urinary tract infection, which became systemic. I had to make the decision to let him go, and having him pass in my arms absolutely broke me. He was my rock. Not only losing him, but knowing I made the decision to put him down killed me. I felt so guilty for giving up on him when, in reality, there was nothing that could be done. Logically, I know it was the right decision given the circumstances, but it doesn't make it any easier. It has been over a year now, and I still cry for him. Thankfully, I have been blessed several times over by the companion dog service and have two orange boys who seemed to know right away when they needed to be by my side. I would like to think he stepped aside so I could welcome them into my life. Had he not passed, I don't know that I would have. I still miss and love him, and it still hurts. Story 18. Miscarriage after 3 years of trying. I went from feeling on cloud 9 to sobbing uncontrollably in my bed. Story 19. A few things. Some of the stories my sister told me about my dad. Being abandoned by school friends because of my disability. Being asked out in my first year of high school in front of a large group of people as part of a dare. Losing my oldest sister to suicide a week before I turned 18. Being groped and scratched against my will in front of most of my extended family at a wedding. Being seriously physically assaulted by one of my elementary school teachers. Having an early relationship that imploded quickly due to moving too fast. Realizing too late that my various undiagnosed and untreated neurological and mental health issues, along with ingrained selfishness, had slowly and irreparably damaged my marriage. Having a friend with different political views from some of my other friends die by suicide, largely because of actions related to those views. Losing a close new friend to drink driving. Losing another close new friend to a sudden undiagnosed heart issue in his sleep. Having to leave behind a promising and potentially lucrative career for logistical reasons that ultimately did not work out. Watching many friends and peers from that time achieve great success. And recently discovering that my very reserved oldest child is struggling with depression. Story 20. My grandfather's death. I have never healed from it, and walking into the hospital knowing he was going to die no matter what we did broke me inside. I did not say anything to anyone about the methods they used to try to save him, but in my heart, I knew it was not going to save him. I sat in that room for a week straight and just held his hand. Story 21. When I was 16, I was ignored in real life by my first girlfriend. 2 days later, my neighbor decided to end my childhood dog's life with a boulder to the head. Story 22. Losing my father to Alzheimer's disease over 10 years as he slowly lost his memory of who we all were, until his last week. We had the gift of him knowing us for 3 days before going into a coma as his body shut down. Story 23. Dreaming of earning my Doctor of Philosophy degree. The only goal I had was to be accepted in the country where I was born. It never happened. They played a cruel game to keep me socially, privately, financially, and professionally disadvantaged. Austria is the worst place on earth. Story 24. My father passed away unexpectedly this past April. I was not prepared for the level of pain I experienced because of this. Story 25. Death of my mother. Death of my first dog as an adult. People ending friendships after more than 20 years without explanation. Story 26. My mother died when I was 7.5 months pregnant with my first child. We were supposed to spend Christmas Eve together for the first time in years, but she died in her sleep of natural causes. She was only 50 years old. Story 27. My stepdaughter was killed in an accident. She was always asking me to give her a sibling and make her a big sister. I was 9 weeks pregnant when she died. A month later, I lost the baby as well. I like to tell myself that the baby was just as much her baby as he was mine, so when she died, he went too so he could be with her. Story 28. Whenever I experienced severe depression, all at the same time, I had a group of people who I thought were my friends betray me, including an ex I was dating in that group. I was unemployed while searching for work, and I was taking a break from college because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I ended a friendship when I realized they only wanted sex from me. They were manipulative, adopted a victim mindset, and lacked accountability for their actions. It affected me deeply, so I cut them out of my life. I watched my dreams die. I was living with an ex in a place in the woods. My ex and I were the best of friends, very close, and complemented each other. Felt like paradise. However, my ex became controlling, had anger issues, and was abusive verbally, emotionally, and physically. I made the choice to walk away from it all. Story 29. I was in an 8-year relationship. I was there for her in her most difficult times, like after a car accident where it took her a year to relearn how to walk. Over time, things got worse between us, and I ended up at the worst time in my life. She couldn't help or comfort me, like I did for her. We broke up, and within the next month, she was with someone else. Thinking back on the relationship often, I remember a lot and realized that she really tried to be manipulative. I still love and miss her over 3 years later, but I have cried it all out already. I was at a funeral for a good friend of mine. At that time, I was fairly emotionally strong and had pretty good control over myself. I broke into tears at the back of the room when I talked to a mutual friend of ours. Story 30. I love my family, but having to go through trauma and then deal with their immense lack of emotional intelligence on top of it affected me deeply. Things are a little better now, but some of the past experiences I have had a difficult time fully releasing because now I lack trust. Story 31. Losing close family members for years in a row, including both of my parents. I thought I had escaped it this year. No, I had to put my cat down, the one I had for 16 years. The hits just keep coming. Story 32. Finding my aunt, with whom I was living while taking a 4-week professional course in a state far from my home, passed out drunk in her living room when I finally found a way back to her house one night. Luckily, it was a Friday, so I did not have to talk to her about this the next day before going into my day-long classes. She justified herself by saying she was a useless, worthless person who deserved nothing. The truth was that she was a very kind, generous woman who was beloved by her many nieces and nephews. But the lifelong criticism from her late mother, who was just a mean and vindictive woman under her sweet grandmother facade, took root in a way that could never be dislodged. My mother, my aunt's younger sister, happened to call while my aunt and I were having that reckoning, and I criticized my mother harshly, also a first and a very emotional moment for me, for knowing my aunt was drinking like this and not warning me about it before I went to stay with her. Story 33. Seeing my brother losing himself to mental illness and having the love of my life lying to my face turned off the last little spark left in me. Story 34. My younger brother died by suicide. My mother never said, "I love you," before she passed away. She showed no remorse for the way she treated me my whole life. Story 35. Being emotionally abandoned by my family took an overwhelming amount of heartache to learn they are incapable of emotional connection. Story 36. Someone's last in-person words being, "I love you," and then just disappearing from your life on purpose. I now understand that this was because he lacked any courage and was a total jerk. But at the time and for years after, it really messed me up. From talking about moving me into his place and getting married to just gone. Story 37. This is going to sound strange, but it was my sister's death. I am the oldest and my brother is the youngest. He never got to meet our sister because she passed away as a baby. My brother started to see pictures of her and me, but never of himself, and for years he thought he was adopted. Story 38. Watching my grandparents decline as they aged and eventually died. One had dementia and one had a very similar condition. It is horrible to watch people you love deteriorate in that way. Story 39. Watching my mom die of dementia. My sister and I kept her at home and took turns sleeping over to help Dad take care of her. Due to her illness, she couldn't talk, but every night I would tell her I loved her. And one night she said, "I love you too." I can't imagine how hard it must have been for her to say those few words. She passed away in 2015, and just writing this makes me cry all over again. I will miss her every day until the day I die. Story 40. Miscarrying my daughter at 16 weeks pregnant. I lost almost 3 pints of blood, and my body went into septic shock. My blood pressure was 70/35. Story 41. Realizing that my ex-husband cloned my phone at least 5 years ago and has been manipulating me and my relationships with my friends and family is upsetting. I can delete accounts and change passwords on things and start over easily. Understanding that I have no clue what has been sent, deleted, or manipulated in personal conversations is truly devastating. Story 42. Realizing I had been burned out for 6 straight years, thinking it was just normal. The hardest part was not the exhaustion but realizing how much of my life I had given away without even noticing. Story 43. Discovering that the person I loved and had supported through many years of change was cheating on me the whole time, and in the end blamed me for their own lack of character was a big lesson. While it made me stronger and better, it really was difficult to go through. I am not sure I am the same person on the other side. That experience changed me. Story 44. I feel like emotional pain is something you subject yourself to. Don't get me wrong, it exists, but you can wallow in it or not at your own discretion. I sat in the next room while my step-grandfather died of cancer, spending the last few months of his life with him when my father, whose stepfather he was off with someone else. I've had 2 immediate family members take their own lives. Neither of them shared their pain with anyone. They chose to keep it private, and eventually what probably seemed at first like harmless catastrophizing overwhelmed them. They decided they wouldn't seek help for whatever problems may or may not have existed. A lot of people like to keep a little storm in a teacup, indulge themselves in a bit of melancholy, and that can be well and good and artistically useful. But don't get it twisted. There are few problems that can't be solved, and most of them involve taking a life. Pretty much anything short of that can usually be dealt with. Actually, even taking a life isn't necessarily the end for a lot of people who were just, for example, driving and minding their own business, or prescribing a drug when the patient hasn't mentioned they take a supplement that's contraindicated, or other situations. Emotional pain can evoke passion and be motivating, but always remember that it thinks much more of itself than you should. If I were weighing mine on a scale, I feel like the first death of a close friend when I was young enough that we all still thought we were immortal is a significant one. Really though, it was a puppy I got for Christmas that was supposed to have had all his shots, but I had to take him to be put down because he had distemper. Here's a present. Whoops, just kidding. It's death. Like, shucks, you old so-and-so. Can't you wait until I'm a bit older? I'll still be here. Story 45. I have to keep smiling even though the things that happen or that I am going through in life make me want to break down and cry. I have to be strong for my son. It is emotionally draining. For example, my dad died a day before Mother's Day this year. I am a victim of domestic abuse and violence. My son is autistic and can be violent when he is angry or upset. I was bullied, and I do not think I am worthy of anything such as love, friendship, or happiness. Story 46. Having an abnormal mammogram and having to wait an entire month for a follow-up because there were no appointments was the hardest month of my entire 46-year life. I was in a deep depression. Story 47. My abusive spouse laughed in my face while packing all his belongings. After he announced that he only saw me as a friend 6 weeks after we got married. He thought it was funny how much power he had to hurt me. He did me a favor, though, because if he hadn't crushed my heart, I would probably be dead by now. Also, well after the fact, I started dating. He found out and began breaking into my house to leave mementos and try to take my pets. Restraining orders helped. Story 48. My divorce from my first wife. We slowly grew apart over 8 years of marriage, and it was very hard on our young children. We kept it civil and inexpensive since we did not have much, but it was still incredibly difficult. Nobody cheated. It was just a different direction of growth for us. Neither of us was fully to blame, but neither was fully innocent either. I took my time, and I believe I did much better in my second marriage. We will celebrate 21 years soon. Story 49. Watching the person you love the most in the universe slowly fade away from a terminal illness. No matter how tightly you try to hold on to them, they wither away, slipping through your fingers until they are no longer there. Addiction, mental illness, physical illness, it does not matter. It is a helpless yearning, lying to yourself, somewhat believing that your will is enough to keep them here. Dust in the wind. Story 50. Childhood sexual assault. I had just turned 11, watching my grandfather slowly deteriorate after being diagnosed with cancer. He barely resembled a human being in the last couple of months. It was like looking at a corpse. I was 12. Story 51. During my senior year of high school, a guy threatened to beat me up. Many people were defending him. Story 52. What? Islam? I believe in the universe. I am not into organized religion. I believe it is the same for everyone. There is one truth and there is an afterlife, but it is the same for everyone. How foolish it is to think it is different based on what you believe. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.